Hey everybody, Sean here. All right, bonus Bible study tonight. I'm going to try to do anything to keep everybody from only watching TV, which also means I'm trying to find a reason to do something besides myself just watching TV. You're welcome and thank you simultaneously, all at the same time. Let me encourage you, don't let this be a time that's just about the coronavirus. Let this be a Corona consecration. Take this time. Say, my options are limited and I refuse to go and just do what's easy or what's lazy. I will use this time to get closer to Jesus and learn to look more like Jesus. Our governor called it stay at home, stay healthy. I'm going to call it pray at home. Make yourself healthy and everybody in your world. Do I hear amen? I think I hear a little bit of it. All right. So this is something God kind of was tapping me on the shoulder about this story I want to read tonight. I'm going to do, at least tomorrow night for Bible study, maybe even more. I'm going to do some stories that talk about how people in the Bible have made it through extreme crises. Crises, that's plural of crisis. Crises. And God was kind of tapping me on the shoulder about the story, and I want to share it with you. We're going to talk about the life of Isaac. I know there's a gasp. You're going, what in the world can we learn from Isaac? And the simple answer is not a lot. The longer answer is I got a great story, and we're going to go through it right now. This is out of Genesis chapter 26. Look at your neighbor and say, Genesis chapter 26. All right. Just make sure you say that to your neighbor from a nice 6 feet away, because, yeah, you get that. All right. So it starts out like this. Again, Genesis chapter 26. Now there was a famine in the land. A famine in the land. You have to understand, we don't get famines. In famines, no one thrived. Everyone barely stayed alive. There's no food. There's no water. Nothing. When famines hit the Old Testament world, it was the greatest catastrophe you could ever imagine. Now there was a famine in the land besides the previous famine that had occurred in the day of Abraham. So Isaac went to Gerar to Abimelech, the king of the Philistines. The Lord appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt, stay in the land which I shall tell you. Verse 3, sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and bless you, for to you and your descendants I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath which I swore to your father Abraham. Verse 4, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven, and I will give your descendants all these lands, and by your descendants all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed me. Remember, we've been talking about Jesus' love language. Hint, it's obedience. My love language might be sandwiches. Jesus' love language was obedience. Technically, sandwiches with just a little too much mayonnaise, but that's not important now. Verse 5, because Abraham obeyed me and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. All right, let me just unpack this for a second, and then we're going to go into the real story. This is just the warm-up. There was a famine. Isaac moved, and God stopped him and said, don't go to Egypt. Don't try to make some kind of backup plan. Now, the point I want you to get from this is, in the midst of the crisis that we're dealing with right now, remember more than anything your personal relationship with God. I've been meditating on Psalms 91. If you want to know what to read during this time, read Psalms 91. You will be protected from the dark pestilence, okay? Make your first and foremost primary response, how close am I to Jesus? Am I stepping closer to him? Am I making every decision to keep myself as close to him as possible? Because when you live in the shadow of his wings, that's where the protection is. How close do you have to be to a bird to be under the shadows? Hint, very close. Okay, this isn't a time for you to start feeling uncomfortable and itchy about your walk with Jesus. You have to come back to this response of, if I find something in the Bible I don't agree with, I'm the one that's wrong. Hello? Amen out there somewhere? And remember, this is a Corrie ten Boom quote that I absolutely love. Sometimes it seems very dark because God's so close. Okay? So, Psalms 91 lists a lot of things that can still happen that you're going to be protected from. 1,000 falling at your right side, 10,000 at your left, but it will come nowhere near you. You have to be completely convinced God is going to protect me. Yes, rain falls on the righteous and the unrighteous. Yes, there is a randomness to this planet. If you were in the Twin Towers on September 11th, you had a bad day regardless of your faith. But for the most part, when you become completely convinced, like Isaac was when he was talking to Abraham, I'm going to continue the work that I started with your dad. I'm not done. You don't have to come up with a contingency. All you need to do is go back to what you originally did. Does that make sense? Revelation says you've lost your first love. Go back to what you did before. If I hear one more pastor say we're living in a new season, no, we're not living in a new season. Jesus only has one mission, look like him. That never changes. If I hear another pastor say we have to do different things to reach different people, no, you don't. You do the exact same thing you've always done. You love people to the kingdom. You pray for people. You invest in the lives of people. I wish I could say there was something fun, different, and novel to do because you know me, I do it. But we have to come back to the fact. Jesus' love language is obedience. And he promises when you love him by obeying him, that's how you abide. And when that abiding is there, that's where the power comes in. That's where God releases things into our lives we couldn't possibly do. Anybody out there need God to release something in their lives that we can't do? I think I'm hearing amens again. All right. Here's the real story I want to get to. And I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's kind of long. Isaac goes into this new land, and there was a well that Abraham had dug. Now, once again, remember, in the desert, what's the most important thing? Water. Yes, water. And so when Isaac comes to this well that his father had... Oh, and let me just do real quick. This is verse 12. Now Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold, and the Lord blessed him. So because he obeyed, God abundantly touched everything that he was blessed. Okay, so now this is in verse 18. Then Isaac dug again. All right, let me go back to 15. Now the wells which his father's servants had done in the days of Abraham his father, so they should be legally Isaac's, the Philistines stopped up by filling them with earth. So there was an active enemy working against Isaac's good. The Philistines. We find the Philistines still fighting Israel all throughout the entire Old Testament. And in this virus, ladies and gentlemen, this is an active work of the devil. Don't let anybody try to say, well, God's doing this to get our focus back on him. Please, God's always trying to get our focus back on him. Stealing, killing, destroying, not from God. Abundant life. The doctors and the nurses who are in there risking their life. That's God's work. And if you want to set people free during this time, you step into their life and you say, this is not from God. Jesus, who is God, is always on the side of life. If Jesus was here, he would walk straight into the hospitals and he would immediately see everybody healed. He had perfect results because he had perfect obedience. Where have we heard that before? Our job is to grow in our obedience so that we grow in our results. But we can become completely convinced praying against COVID-19 is exactly what Jesus wants us to do, and then loving the people around us. If you have people in your life who are going crazy with conspiracy theories, you can be free to say, hey, I'll see you later. Really, you don't need that in your life. What you need is a firm belief like Abraham, like Isaac was told in this story. Stay in the land. Do what I told you to do. And watch God Bless it. Okay, so the Philistines filled up the wells. And in verse 18, then Isaac dug again the wells of water which had been dug in the days of his father Abraham, for the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham. Here's the part I want you to get. They absolutely could have had a quote-unquote legal right to go in and fight the Philistines for what they did. But they chose to say, the same God that led us to this well is going to be the same God that's going to bless us, and we're just going to dig again. Friends, listen. There's a lot of people who are panicking and wanting to stand up and fight for their rights in this time. And let me encourage you. The same God that blessed you before, the same God that brought you through every one of your previous worst days, is the same God who's going to bring you out of these worst days. And it may mean we don't get to fight for our own vindication, but we just need to pick up our shovel and redig the well. Do I hear amen again? I think I do, because the story goes on. Verse 19, when Isaac's servants dug in the valley, they found there was a well of flowing water. Praise God. The same God that brought them to the well in the past is the same God that brought them water now. But the herdsmen quarreled with the herdsmen of Isaac, saying, the water is ours. So what basically happens is now you have another group of people wanting to claim the water. Let me just keep reading. Verse 21. Then they dug another well. They didn't fight. They didn't go to war. Let me explain the difference between a contract and a covenant. In a contract, you fight for your rights and you limit your responsibilities. In a covenant, you accept responsibilities and you take your rights to the cross. Okay? This is why a lot of marriages go sideways. It's because we want to make them contracts and not covenants. And we become obsessed with, this is my right. Now, of course, there certainly are times when you have to fight for yourself. I'm not saying that. Don't take it to that extreme. But understand, when we become obsessed about our rights, we completely miss the responsibilities. Jesus laid down all of his rights in heaven and came to earth. And then he laid down more rights and he became a person. And then he laid down more rights and was born poor. And he laid down more rights and he went to the cross. The servants could have fought over the well, but what did they do? Verse 22, he moved away from there and dug another well. And they did not quarrel over that, so he named it Rehoboth, and he said, at last the Lord has made room for us, and we will be fruitful in the land. You notice how Isaac went right back to saying what God was saying? Friends, in this time, do not become obsessed about what you can't do or what you've lost or what you're afraid of. Go right back to what Jesus says is true. I'm not smart enough to disagree with Jesus. I can't have anything in my life where I'm saying one thing and Jesus is saying another. Maybe you can. God bless you. Asalu, it's your life. I can't. So in a time like this, where there are some wells that are maybe legally mine, or there are things that I think, I'm an American Christian, I demand my... No. We're going to go the way of the Lamb. We're going to take the attitude that says our example of power is going to the garden. Well, no, let's go even back further. Our example of personal power and effectiveness is washing the feet of those around us, then going to the garden. And then when you're in the garden, you say, not my will, but yours. And we always remember, destiny starts in Gethsemane. Okay? Destiny starts in Gethsemane. The more you say, not my will, but yours, the more you are walking in the absolute power of God. Because can I tell you something, folks? The power of my opinion is highly overrated. The power of what I want has gotten me into a ton of trouble. But when I live with the attitude that I'm going to say in Gethsemane, Not my will, but yours. That's when I walk in the kind of power that changes my world and everybody around me. So what is our example of power? Washing feet. Going to the Garden of Gethsemane and saying, not my will, but yours. Picking up your cross and doing what you're sent to do. For other people. Self-sacrificially. We're coming into the Easter season, and the main theme, the main thought of Easter is self-sacrificial love is stronger than death. And right now in this season, you may feel, I have a lot of wells that are legally mine. Well, congratulations.